I would like to please welcome to the stage Joyce Zemans, who is going to talk to us about Jock Macdonald. Thank you.
My task tonight is to answer the question, as Sarah suggested, what makes art Canadian? Another way of framing the question might be, what was Jock Macdonald's role in the story of Canadian art? I'll attempt to answer this question in a brief overview of Macdonald's evolution as an artist, from designer to landscape painter to one of Canada's preeminent abstract artists. I will focus particularly on Macdonald's understanding of the nature of art, the question that preoccupied him throughout his career, and on his influence as a Canadian artist and a teacher. Born in 1897, Macdonald grew up in the north of Scotland. He majored in design at the Edinburgh College of Art, where he also became a certified teacher. In 1926, he was appointed the head of design at the newly founded Vancouver School of Decorative and Applied Arts, now Emily Carr University. An inspirational teacher over his 35-year teaching career, and he taught every year except for 2. A Canadian artist, he pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be a Canadian artist, educating thousands of students how to see in a new way. Macdonald's introduction to Canadian art came in the person of Group of 7 member Fred Varley, the new school's head of painting. Both men loved the mountains. They camped and explored together. Varley became Jock's mentor in painting, and for the first few years after he started painting in oil, he showed every one of his major oils to Varley for approval, to make sure it was okay. Macdonald found early inspiration after he arrived in Canada in the work of the Group of 7 and their search for a national identity through their art. He particularly admired Lorne Harris's paintings and their expression of the spiritual nature of Canada as a northern nation. He requested reproductions of these works from the National Gallery, and they were displayed in his classrooms. And he read Harris's writings about the spiritual in art. It's important to keep in mind that Macdonald began, as a professional designer. The work on the left is a design competition that he entered for the BC Electric Company, which displayed posters throughout Vancouver and BC. And this is one of Macdonald's first Canadian landscapes, flat design-like. By Lytton Church, which was painted the next year, you can see that Macdonald, influenced by the group, perhaps by A.Y. Jackson, was struggling to move beyond surface design, to create depth and to eliminate pattern. This was, in fact, the first oil painting that he didn't show to Varley before he exhibited it, and it was acquired in 1932 by the National Gallery for their Canadian art collection. These 2 paintings of the same subject were painted 2 years apart. The first, on the left, on your left, it was an immediate success with its powerful depiction of the looming tusk in Garibaldi Park. It's a mature landscape painting, and it marks the beginning of Macdonald's independent vision as an artist and his recognition as an important Canadian artist. His work was included in an exhibition organized by the National Gallery of Canada that traveled through the Southern Dominions, Australia and New Zealand in 1936, and in 1939 it was shown at the New York World's Fair as part of the Canadian exhibition. The second painting on the right, which is actually smaller, you don't get scale in slides, reflects Macdonald's growing interest in the spiritual nature of the landscape. In this work, the now much more triangular tusk aspires upwards. The shape was believed by the ancients to explain the secret order of the cosmos, and it was adopted as a symbolic aspiration of art and of the landscape, of oneness with the landscape. Like Varley, Macdonald had also become immersed in Eastern mysticism and the search for an art that reflected not only a specific geographic location, but more importantly, a connection to the cosmos, to a higher reality. In 1933, Macdonald and Varley left their teaching positions to create a new school, the BC College of Art. Rejecting nationalism, the college was dedicated to creating a new art movement, drawing together from East and West the powerful forces of the art world and welding them together on the BC coast. A student recalls the advice at the time: forget anything not mystical. This painting on the left by Vera Weatherby, portraying Varley, Harry Toiber in the middle, and Jock, provide some insight into the influence of the spiritual on the atmosphere of the college. It was a very happening scene. The BC College was a noble experiment, but in the Depression, enthusiasm was not enough, and the school was forced to close. Macdonald and his family, his wife and young daughter, along with Harry Toiber, portrayed there, and a student at the college, left Vancouver for Yuquot, the home of the Mowachot people on the remote west coast of Nootka Island, where they hoped to work at one with nature. Macdonald spent 18 months at Nootka and painted these two works just before he left, in the fall, after an experience that changed the way he worked, what he referred to as a breakthrough, an epiphany that led to this notion of oneness with the universe that he'd been searching for. He called these paintings modalities and described them as a new expression which belongs to no school or already seen expression. He wrote, "Art is not found in the mere imitation of nature, but the artist studies nature in order to go beyond it and be aware of the hidden laws of nature." An avid reader on contemporary art and philosophy, science, and mathematics, Macdonald had come to believe that the artist must go beyond nationalism to respond to his or her own time and own country and to the most contemporary ideas in every discipline. Like the Toronto-based artist, the first to show abstract art in a solo show in Canada, Bertram Brooker, whose work he read, and who wrote, "Let critics elsewhere call us Canadian. Let us simply be artists." This became his credo, but he always believed in place and the inspiration of place, of Canada. In 1938, he was the first artist to exhibit abstract paintings at the Vancouver Art Gallery, and his pioneering influence would help to shape the modernist movement in Vancouver in the 40s and 50s. And the work on the right, Etheric Form, is appropriately included in the Mystical Landscape exhibition at the Art Gallery of Ontario, which you should all see because it provides, well, aside from everything else, it provides a remarkable context for what Macdonald was trying to do. Although Macdonald had begun to work abstractly, he still, as I said, believed in the importance of place and the uniqueness, oh my God, of the Canadian experience. Okay, I'm going to go really, really quick. Okay, he described Herring Row as the most typically Western Canada and the most Canadian work he had ever done. He did this work on the right in the 1943 Silk Screen project that the National Gallery conducted, and he believed that it would represent Canada to our troops abroad and to Canadians across the country. Very quickly, okay. These two works were done after he heard a lecture by a British artist, psychiatrist, Grace Palethorpe, on surrealist automatic painting, and he worked with her intensively, learning to free his unconscious and to paint automatically. Like Bourdieu and the automatists, he had discovered a new and life-changing approach to painting. In 1953, he was a founding member of Painters 11, and In 1955, Haroldtown introduced him to acrylic paint, which allowed him to paint in oil the way he had painted in watercolor. And he really never looked back. This work done in the last year of his life, was one of the incredibly rich and powerful paintings that were done in the last 5 years of his life. In 1960, just before he died, he wrote, "An artist must constantly seek to discover new forms of beauty." So for Macdonald, it was about all of those things, about the art, about his influence on generations of students, about his work in founding art groups and providing support for artists across the country, and for his belief that abstraction was a way of expressing one's artistic vision, being Canadian, but going beyond being Canadian, being at one with the universe. Thank you.